We have a massive XRP SWIFT Visa update for you. It's big news. You're going to want to stay tuned to the end of this video. We have a lot to share, but at the end of the video, you're going to appreciate what you're going to learn. Also, you know that we often show the decent wallet because it benefits both of our channels. So stay tuned. Here's a minimum of a 30-second video that we want you to watch. If you don't have a decent wallet, go ahead and get you one. So watch this now. We'll be right back.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
Thanks for spending the time looking at that. Please don't regret that we show that video. It benefits us. It does. We make a little bit of money doing that. I know you don't begrudge that. We love the American dream, and I appreciate every one of you. Max and I, between the two of us, sell tons of the decent wallets. It's amazing how many. And I want to throw this in about the decent wallet. It was completely unaffected by the XRPL debacle. It was not affected in any way, shape, or form. The decent wallet is secure. It's an air gap wallet, and it is secure. You're not going to get hacked through the decent wallet. If you protect your seed phrase, it's never going to happen. So I just wanted to throw that in as extra. Max, this news about SWIFT and Visa is amazing news. Go ahead and start to share that with us.
Absolutely. Before we get to that specific segment, we're going to jump into the SWIFT site. There's some new updates I think we really need to pay attention to. So you guys know what we do here. We constantly reference the updates from SWIFT. I mean, literally, with all the deadlines coming up, they are updating their website like it's a Christmas tree with Christmas lights, or Grand Central Station, right? It's just all the bells and whistles. It's going off. So what do we have? Well, first thing we're going to get into is this. As you see right here, it's the update. What update? Well, they mentioned specifically the CBPR Plus roadmap. It says the CBPR working group is creating new uses guidelines for the camped 0.025 receipt, and of course, correspondence messages. I mean, at the end of the day, we are talking about ISO 2022 that does involve basically messages. Well, what else does it mention? It says we expect these guidelines to be available by the end of 2025 and mark another important milestone in the evolution of CBPR Plus standards. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting, and some of you guys may not be aware of this. It states hybrid postal addresses will also be introduced and enabled as part of that release. During a one-year grace period, CBPR Plus messages will support a fully structured hybrid or unstructured postal address for all agents and parties across CBPR Plus messages. All right. What else do they have? Well, it says the end of coexistence. We know that when it comes to ISO 222, we discovered about roughly, I want to say maybe a month or two. Shout out to Rue Black, who I've been doing collaborations with every Sunday. And that is, in the discovery, Ripple XRP, of course, was founded in 2004, and basically SWIFT introduced ISO 222 messaging that same year. And we also point out, why in the world would you introduce something that you're going to be replaced by? Again, they're not being replaced as in SWIFT. It's an upgrade, okay? I don't think SWIFT is necessarily going away. MT messaging is going away. But again, this is their standard that they introduced. So worth noting, as we get further into this, it's these updates. At its March 2024 meeting, the SWIFT board reconfirmed the community's commitment to November 2025 as the end of MT/ISO 222 cross-border coexistence period. Okay, so this means moving forward that instead of MT, it's MX, because MX is with ISO 222. This would emphasize a priority that should be given to payment instruction messages to ensure operational continuity and ongoing interoperability. As far as I'm concerned, when interoperability is at place, which it is, things like Quant will definitely take the cake because of the orchestration of ISO 222 messages. And we've been over this probably a good 100,000 times at this point. It says this is because the use of ISO 222 cross-border payment instructions is necessary to enable end-to-end interoperability between financial institutions and between financial institutions and payment market infrastructures. Now think about those infrastructures. Are they connected to real-time gross settlements? Again, don't overthink about it, because I think go with your gut on that. We've studied this. We know the connections. But what about compliance? Well, they address that. It is important to ensure that data, particularly related to payment parties, is not lost or truncated along the end-to-end processing chain. Boom. Boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. How many times over the course of 3+ years I have used this analogy, Will? We had people rocking and rolling 24/7, 365. And one of the complaints was, man, I got to dig up the log file. I got to see what this guy said, because we had a few bad apples on there. And wherever the case be, we want to make sure that everybody is behaving well and not acting like children. But those log files, Will, they used to get so big. And if they got so big, what would happen was the messages would truncate in the log file. Well, let's apply that to SWIFT and MT messaging. That is a problem. It's a problem because, again, one central bank from one part of the world sending a $10 trillion payment to another side of the world because they're loaning money. One country might be going bankrupt. Well, whatever the case be, messages get lost due to truncation. MX with ISO 222 eliminates that. Therefore, time is money. Now you have things with faster systems, RTGS, Ripple XRPs, or Stellars, and so on. Now money flows, and now you're saving banks a lot of time, which means less fees, which means more money can be moved, more than it's ever been moved in the history of mankind. So your thoughts briefly with this update, and if anything else you want to share in that regard.
Yeah, I had a silly analogy pop in my head. The current system is like trying to play cards with peanut butter all over each card. It's just a mess, and the new system's going to be slick and clean, and be able to categorize, see, read, and file every kind of a message. Look it up, read it, understand it. It's going to have a particular way that it's written. Under the system now, there's not really a standard. I mean, I read where there's certain things like payments from colleges. There's this huge jam up because the college was sending the money to another country, and in the message they kept referring to their college, by like Beta Alpha, whatever the name of their particular sorority or whatever it was. And that alone jammed up the payment for weeks because they just could not understand what was going on. It was like they're translating to another language, and it did not make sense to them, the references. And also, different people say phrases and things in different ways, and they phrase sentences in different languages, move the verbs in different places, the nouns in different places. And not every person that's translating has done it 1,000 times. There's brand new money sent to brand new places. With zero standard, the confusion is constant. So imagine that getting cleaned up where everything's just perfect and right in line. I mean, it's going to be beautiful, and they can reference it easy. So it's going to streamline everything. It's going to make money move faster. And when you add to that the idea of the Vostro, Nostro accounts and all the dependency on the multiple currencies, then using, of course, centering on XRP, then the countries that are using XRP no longer have to worry about the FX market or doing currency transfers. Imagine that process being eliminated. where it's just XRP, and as soon as you get it, it becomes your own currency as fast as you sell it. And don't forget those giant transactions that are taking place for the retail market look like purchases and sales. They purchased XRP, they sold XRP. But for the institution, they could care less about the cost. They only care, can I shove this money in XRP and send this $500 billion to that country? They don't care if XRP is $2 or $100. So you have these giant transactions that are going to take place. And the retail side, we're going to eat it up, because what does that translate to? The most liquidity you could ever imagine. The most giant transactions on earth will be taking place in XRP. And our little bitty transaction of, will I be able to sell my XRP at $100 per XRP? Absolutely, because it's a drop in the bucket. So adding the ISO opens up the ability to communicate because imagine the fear of locking up billions and billions and trillions of dollars because you don't even know what the other party's saying. So then the banks can't even move the money. Now, as that's taking place, you have currency markets shifting. You have the Chinese, you have every country manipulating their own currency, and you got money locked up and it's gaining or losing value. So one side's losing, one side's gaining, in a week, 2 weeks time, where when you take that to 3 seconds with ISO, clear communication, and maybe using XRP or even whatever coin they use under the new system, you're going to have just seconds. So it's huge news to see that banks and institutions are going to be able to read their messages and understand them.
They won't only just understand them, they'll be able to track them. Let's get into what that is all about as well. So I want to mention something to you guys. A lot of you guys already know about some of these particular technologies, and that basically is this. We talk about IPv4. Technically, that's kind of an outdated tech. Well, moving forward, IPv6. Well, think about this. Every single person, unless they're behind a proxy, can be tracked with their IP address. Does SWIFT address this issue when it comes to ISO 222? The answer is yes, they do. What do we have in that regard, and why does it matter? Well, as I pull this up, I want to share this specifically with you. In the update from SWIFT, it mentions this. It says, what are the CBPR plus usage guidelines? We kind of scratched the surface with this just briefly, but what it mentions here is the following timeline has been outlined for the adoption of structured and unstructured address options. It says specifically until November 2025, there are 2 options available for the postal address field. For one, structured. This option allows using up to 14 qualifiers for the address components and requires a minimum of town name and country to be included in a structured format. Number 2, unstructured. This option allows the address to be provided in up to 3 lines of unstructured format. Now, basically, it's like this. Both options are mutually exclusive, so institutions can only use the structured option if they can map all address details in their respective components, which could be a challenge where institutions store addresses in the free text format. However, as of November 2025, a hybrid option will be allowed. This means that the address can include both structured and unstructured elements, providing flexibility while, of course, transitioning to fully structured formats. And last but not least, by November 2026, unstructured option will be phased out and all address fields will be needed to be in the structured or hybrid format. So for me, Will, the way I look at it is like this. There is totally a shift that's going to happen. So if we were able to track people with IP addresses, where they're at, and put in layman's terms, even back to the postal service long before the internet, right? Who doesn't have an address? Some people have P.O. boxes. If you're in the military, you have, was it the AFB or all those other abbreviations, right, for the specific bases. But again, you can find who is wherever they're at. Well, why wouldn't we apply that to blockchain? Would the postal service basically be on blockchain? I think they need to be, right? How many things get lost in the mail and so on. But the bottom line is this, right? It's finding out where these people are, whether they're good actors, bad actors, and so on. But again, blockchain does require internet. Internet says IP addresses. So why wouldn't messaging be any bit different? They're so going to track people. Some people don't like that, but in reality, regulations basically say you have to have this, because moving forward, well, how are we going to find some key people? Yeah, there could be proxies and so on, but that's where I'm going with this. The other update we're going to jump into is this. It's from Smoke. How many times do we reference Smoke? We're always going to reference Smoke because he kills it with the research. He has this other thing we're going to share, and basically it is this. Like you saw in the thumbnail, SWIFT is the handshake, of course, with Ripple. And as you see here, it's more than just a handshake with Ripple. It says this is how Ripple connects the biggest payment systems in the world. SWIFT over to Ripple, handshaking with Earthport means Visa having a handshake with, of course, Ripple. Partnerships are key. XRP getting the deal done with SWIFT, XRP having the deal done with Visa. Documented 4 times over. Well, what visuals does he have? As we pull this up on the other screen, you will see specifically how it all works. Payment instructions. But Earthport is in the middle. We're not doing so much of a deep dive on that. But again, when we look at API direct connection, we already know about things like our quants. We know that Stellar has API orchestration. But what about Ripple? Well, of course, with Interledger. So you can see in the document from Earthport that references this. And if anything, in the middle it says being able to provide credits that receive funds and return transactions. And is Earthport a partner bank? Well, apparently is. Might not be the biggest name you ever heard of, but it's interesting to see this. Because when you see receivables and exception flow, again, you see the notification of the reporting systems. What systems? Back to the whole thing of SWIFT. So Visa, SWIFT, Earthport, is Earthport truly the plug and connect for Visa? I think so. And as we get to the second page, you will see this as well. I think this is big enough for you to see, so we'll keep it there. It shows that back in 2019, Earthport had an acquisition which enabled cross-border A2A payments for Visa Direct. That's basically your plug any way you want to look at it when it comes to specifically Visa. And as you see here, it says $100 million of Visa net settlement obligations using, of course, USDC. Well, then there's your Stellar plug. All right, what else do we have in that regard? Well, it's the plan to expand Visa's reach when they launched their own network of networks strategy, of course, 5 years ago. And in the timestamp, it says 2025, as highlighted by Smoke. On the next page, the third example of 4, this one I'll blow up a little bit bigger. You see here the contextual bank disintermediation. Ripple is right smack dead center in it all. Of course, you see Bitcoin at the top, but it's banking disintermediation. And basically speaking, you can see how this is all orchestrated and what talks to what. Because even as I blow it up even that much more, clear as day, you see, for example, the local banks, the automated clearinghouses, and right below that, the layer of SWIFT kicking it over to the corresponding banks. Does it mention anything specifically about Ripple? It does. In the documentation that came from SWIFT, it says, with the help of Ripple blockchain, interbank payments can indeed be made, but the exchange of personal data should be as confidential as possible, and only SWIFT can make a good job of it, said Wim Raymakers, the head of banking markets division at SWIFT. Well, if anything, I think that's very well worth pointing out. On example 4 now, let's get into this. It says specifically this, and it mentions who are the top mega players in Europe. And basically speaking, it says that you have London's Earthport, and they basically accept payments from banks in more than 60 countries, making it the largest open network for international bank transfers. The Ripple protocol is used to record the transfer of funds through the Earthport's distributed ledger gateway, and the gateway's pre-funded accounts are utilized to give instant liquidity and the best foreign exchange rate. My thoughts on this briefly, Will, is like this. It's like the whole notion that, yeah, instant liquidity. Well, instant liquidity to me is on-demand liquidity with Ripple XRP. There's always going to be people who are going to state that, yeah, Max, Will, it just says Ripple. It's not XRP. To me, that's hogwash. That's phooey. Your thoughts in that regard with everything presented from our brother Smoke.
Yeah, when we talk about Ripple, me and you were speaking earlier about how there are people that brought up the notion that what if Ripple's used and XRP isn't? Well, I don't think that they're that unintelligent. They own half of all the XRP. That's their bank account that Ripple pays for everything. Their biggest motive is to make that asset worth as much as possible, that because that's their bank account. So they don't want to diminish that. They don't want to, subvert their own future to some dead end something by charging a minuscule fee for just doing a communication for the world. That what would Ripple make from that? I mean, it would be minuscule compared to driving home the idea of use XRP for these transactions. It's the native token for our network. If you think we're awesome, then XRP is awesome. And so that should eliminate people's fears of Ripple just trying to be a communication company. That's really silly. Whoever conceived that really wasn't thinking it out in any way, shape, or form, because that's not the way that that's going to work. But looking at this also, I mean, over and over and over, Ripple, 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 not Ethereum. We just did a video that's probably yesterday's video about XRP flipping Ethereum. Ethereum's not mentioned. What coins are mentioned? Well, the network Ripple's mentioned. So what's the native token for Ripple? XRP. XRP is in the middle of everything that's going to be going on in the world transferring money around. And we saw it there. I mean, they're just come out with documents just openly saying so. We're holding an asset. If you're holding XRP, you're holding the most valuable asset in the world, just not yet. But I believe it will be the most valuable money asset in the world as far as how many there are, how much they're worth. I mean, get you some is one of the things, or trade in it. Do something with XRP. Don't you agree, Max? When you see all this Ripple stuff, you can equate it with XRP in the same breath.
In all of the documentation that we have shared, yeah, people are right. It does constantly just say Ripple and it doesn't necessarily say XRP. But here's the thing. You got to keep in mind, why would that be? Well, number one, could be because of NDAs. And number two, let's face it, the whole thing with the SEC. Now, moving forward, when this thing is finally done, which I think it's going to be very, very soon, clearly. Well, once that is all sorted out and the SEC fully declares that this is done, right? Do we see updated documentation? Do we see maybe some NDAs that are no longer NDAs? I'm not saying all 1,700, as Monica Long has pointed out, come into light, but I do think when you go back to things like BNY Mellon or, for example, SWIFT documentation or whatever, Visa, instead of it just saying Ripple specifically, it will say Ripple XRP. Because for one, clarity and regulations and the SEC finally backing off 100% will change that. Do you feel the same way?
It's a brilliant plan, really. I look at it like this. It's as if, let's say you had a train track that had a dimension, an exact dimension of 3 feet, but there's no trains that have wheels 3 feet apart except XRP. So it's amazing. Ripple's allowed to come in and lay all of the tracks down, and the only thing that rides on Ripple is XRP. So it's hilarious because they can get out here and promote everything that Ripple can do for them and lay the tracks all over the world. And then when it comes down to it, what runs on these rails? Well, just so happens XRP does. And we got some over here. You want some? It's like a big setup.
Yeah. So that said, not financial advice, but maybe consider setting yourself up with some XRP. So with that also said, on behalf of myself and the brother Will, we really do thank you guys for tuning in. We really do appreciate you guys. We are all rooting and praying for your success. If you do us a solid, simply type this into the comments, and that is basically XRP is greater than Ripple. And we'll know that you listen to the entire outline. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. We will see you on the next one.